And as many of you know, I'm a Civil War buff, and I couldn't come up with the words to describe this person. I just didn't think the words were coming out of my heart and out of my mind were good enough for what this person's done for all of us. So one night here, as you know, it's the 150th years of Gettysburg. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, they had a reenactment. So I'm Googling on the reenactment and looking at the Civil War. And so I found an auctioneer that started about there. So my story is going to be a little longer. Thank you, Paul, for only taking 6 minutes instead of 60 like we were planning, because it gave me a little more time. So our story starts in the Civil War. Right after the Civil War, a man that was a veteran of the Civil War for 3 years came walking home. Now, he was beaten, battle bruised, but he came home to his home in Kentucky, and there he married a young lady from a neighboring farm. His parents, being in the livestock and the farming industry, he takes to working the farms, as his parents did. And he labors and he learns, as many people in that era did, that you needed children or workforce. So he had 8 children. His first child, I'll call him JJ. JJ was his first child. Now, JJ, you're going to be glad that I picked you, because this man worked in the livestock industry with his parents, but as he got older, he was enthralled and excited and motivated about the auction industry, because they were selling cattle in the auction industry. So JJ was one in the family that became an auctioneer. Now, JJ was very successful in the livestock auction business, but he soon to be, as much as a lot of us won't believe, became in the real estate auction industry. And he was very, very, very successful in the auction industry. And the reason I bring this up is because I found a couple of articles and testimonials on this man, and I think that it describes my inductee better than I could describe him. Okay, so this is JJ. This was written in an article in the newspaper. He has made the profession of auctioneering an art. The gentleman's abilities amount to a gift. He is aggressive and genuine. He is direct but dramatic. He is humorous but earnest. He is an inspiration to all auctioneers. The gentleman is in demand all over the country, and in 1 month alone sold farmlands in 15 states. That was from 1906. A testimonial from Houston, Texas. His natural adaptation for his chosen work is a rich inheritance. This gift, well cultivated, combined with strict business principles, industry, honor, and integrity, has merited for him a national reputation as a real estate auctioneer. Nothing succeeds like success. He is it. 1910. Now, those words from 1910, I believe, describe our gentleman today in 2013. Now, JJ, being an auctioneer and successful, he had 7 siblings. Now, the youngest of those was not near as successful as JJ was. He was the youngest son, 16 years younger. I'll pick Paul. Now, Paul had tried a couple of businesses to succeed, but never quite got into the groove. So JJ, wanting to help young aspiring people, especially his own sibling, his younger brother, said, you need to go to auction and learn to auction. Now, this young man, because JJ and Paul's father was in the auction industry, he was enthralled with auctions also. And he was a cattle breeder, a very notorious cattle breeder of the Angus brand. He was so good at it that he became well known all across the land as a wonderful Angus breeder. But he started auctioning his cattle. And not only did he have a keen eye for cattle, because with his keen sense of ability, he started judging cattle stock shows. And he comes to a cattle show. It was a Hereford show, and another young man caught his eye. Another young man, we'll pick Sandy. Now, Sandy is a young man, and he is very gregarious, very outgoing, very confident, and he is showing his cattle to the best of his ability, and Paul takes a liking to him. Now, this young man, father, also being in the cattle business, had taken him to cattle auction since as a small child. Now, Sandy was enthralled with the symphony, if you would, of the auction process. He was fascinated by the fast talking, the chant, the rhythm of the auctioneer, the parade of the cattle going by, the clanging of the gates, the shouts of the ringmen and the bidders, the smell of the food at the auction. So it didn't take much to convince him that he should go to auction school. So at 16 years of age, Sandy goes to auction school. Now, by the way, this whole story is true. Sandy goes to auction school. He comes out of auction school and becomes a teenage prodigy. He's doing sales all across a couple of states area, the cattle sales. One sale barn owner, the largest sale barn owner that they knew of at the time, said he was the best auctioneer for his age and his experience of people that were way older and way more experienced than him. He became a successful auctioneer. Now, Paul, being a great breeder, was not so fortunate in his family life because Paul only had one daughter named Paulette. Now, Paul was really happy to have Paulette, and being her only daughter, he wanted her to do well in life and marry up, if you would. And he was so excited about the young auctioneer, about the young Sandy coming up, that not only did he add cattle breeding and auctioneering to his resume, but he added matchmaking. And at 20 years old, Sandy married Paulette. And they had one son. Now, this is at a time in 1941, and if you know your history, in 1941, Pearl Harbor took place. Now, Pearl Harbor was the bombing of the Japanese, started a world war, and at that time, it changed many Americans' lives, including Sandy and Paulette's, because their marriage began to get in trouble and they divorced. But their one son, who started school in a one-room schoolhouse, soon moved to Florida with his mother. From there, he went to school, finishing high school, but before, he went to auction school at the age of 16, just as his father, becoming the third generation auctioneer. So now he's got his great uncle, his father-in-law, his granddad. I'm even confused. I don't know how y'all are keeping up. So we've got his granddad, his great uncle, his granddad, his dad, and now him. Everybody understand? Third generation. Okay, I'm glad y'all got it because I'm having trouble here. Okay, so to continue the story, he goes to auction school at 16. He goes and graduates from high school, and there he goes to Penn State University. At Penn State, he graduates with a degree in animal science. His granddads on both sides being in the cattle industry, his father being in the cattle industry, he moves home to be closer to his father and work with his grandfather's dad taking over the cattle industry, still working in the auction profession. At that time, he starts working a sale barn. And when he's working the sale barn, he's driving 50 miles and being paid $25. And he meets a man, and they become lifelong friends. Not only lifelong friends, but partners. Because on one situation, they take off from the sale barn, they call and get permission to miss the day, even though they're both scared to death because $25 they were gonna miss that week. They got their first sale of glassware, personal property, and estates. After selling for about 6 hours, that night they tell their wives, happy days are here again. We're going town to get pizza, and they're high-fiving because they made a whopping $90 each. But it started a partnership that they started selling real estate, they started selling heavy equipment, and he, because he was in the livestock industry forever, became one of the leading Angus auctioneers of our time, selling over 10,000 auctions. You know, in 1982 or so, the partnership started in the early 60s. Our gentleman joined this association in 1963. But in the early 80s, the partnerships had a little trouble, not because they weren't getting along, but as we all know that are a little older, that the interest rates were 20, 22, 23%. Them being the cattle industry with the fluctuation in the markets, it pretty well broke the two of them. Many people told them that they should file for bankruptcy, possibly even their fathers. But neither one would do so because they said, who would hire an auctioneer and entrust all their worldly goods to a man, an auctioneer that had filed for bankruptcy? So they wouldn't do it. Our inductee, and this will probably give him away if you haven't already known, said, it'll be fine. It'll be just fine. Because an opportunity will come knocking. And an opportunity did come knocking. For not too long after that, a gentleman he had been selling Angus livestock to for years called him and said, you need to move to my town, to my home, because real estate auctions will work here. Him being a believer, him being sure that he could do it, he packed up his family and he moved after 20 years of the partnership. His partner told me, he said he never had a doubt. He's so optimistic you wouldn't believe it. If you got a package of horse poop and you wrapped it up and put a bow on it and put it under the Christmas tree, he would open it up on Christmas morning and jump and shout and run to the barn looking for his miniature horse. He's the most optimistic man I know, ladies and gentlemen. If I went to Disney World not too long ago, and I believe he'd make Zig Ziglar look like, what's his name? Eeyore on Winnie the Pooh. If I would have started out, and I know I've taken a little time, and I could have took it 5 seconds, and I could describe this man in 5 words and 5 words only, and I think you would have known who he was. If I would have said, number 1, he's optimistic. Number 2, he's passionate. Number 3, he's enthusiastic. Number 4, he has honesty. And number 5, he has integrity. Ladies and gentlemen, not only did he move to that town, he started one of the most successful real estate businesses in our profession with his son, the 4th generation auctioneer. I'm proud to work for him today. They are Williams & Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Thomas L. Tommy Williams. The 4th generation auctioneer, Mr. Dean Williams and his family. While he's saying hi to his family, I'll read the plaque. Presented to Thomas L. Williams, CAI, Bigsby, Oklahoma, in recognition and appreciation of his outstanding contribution to the profession of auctioneering and the National Auctioneers Association as the 2013 Hall of Fame Award recipient. Mr. Williams, here's your pen.
Well, you guys have finally had your dream. You all said you could never find a time you could shut me up, but you've done it. You know, needless to say, I think the first thing I need to tell every one of you, particularly those of you that are sitting in here that this is the first convention that you've ever attended. And all of you that say, you know, someday this is what I would like to have happen. Do remember this. If you can dream it, I will guarantee you it's possible because I'm living proof. No question about it. The dream of my life was kind of started when I was 18. And I married that brown-eyed girl that I still say is the driving force of my life. Obviously, my family, and obviously he's talking about Jack and Sherry Louderman. We're talking about a friendship that there's something that when you start in a profession and that has endured for 40-some years, it's special, to say the least. But the one thing that I loved, not as much as those folks, but I loved it from the time I was 12 years old on, is this profession, because it's, I think, the greatest way to market and merchandise that we'll ever have. So you're in a very, very, very special vocation, and treat it that way. Now I'm going to try, as usual, Trudy's watching out for me. She says if I give him a list, he'll probably get through the names, and I'm going to do my darndest. First off, Dean, you and Maggie come up here, and this is the Williams and Williams of today. And come on, Lila, you and Harper, these are their daughters, and Hank, come up here and get in the front. And that's Hank. So that's my oldest son and his family. My other son, there's no way you can ever get him to go anyplace, so I understand why he's not here, but he did send his best representatives by far. First off, his oldest daughter, my granddaughter, Megan, and her husband, Jonathan. Two outstanding folks, I can tell you that. And then his youngest daughter, Courtney, and then, now somebody pick him up, Jonathan. Now this boy's going to make an auctioneer, I will guarantee it. I've been looking all the time. I thought, someday we'll find an auctioneer. Great-grandson, I think he's going to be able to do it. That's Cooper. And then I talked about the friendship that Trudy and I started with Jack and Sherry Louderman at that very same time. In fact, it even goes back further. This young lady's father was my father's best friend. And here we are now, the second generation down the line. One of the great friends I've ever had in my life, Barbara McCullum. We lost her traveling mate, Tony, a couple of years ago. Where are you, Barbara? Here she is right here. Very, very special gal in our life. Now, of course, I want to thank all of those. I think, well, Jack, you and Sherry, come up here. These are the ones that we've been talking about. I've been married twice. I married Trudy, and then I married them. And it's been a fabulous marriage on both occasions, I'll tell you that. Certainly, I want to thank all of those that are involved with Williams and Williams. You've made a great, a tremendous amount of the success that I enjoy has come from those that work for us. Thanks to each and every one of you. As Spanky said, there's a table of Williams, and all of you Williams and Williams employees stand up. All of you stand up that are over there. I didn't even know you were here. You bet. Thank you. And over there where we were sitting, I couldn't that's the only thing about this whole night that's been puzzling. But I have met these friends in Florida that are some of the really wonderful people I've met in life, and they came over with us tonight. They're good friends from here in Indiana. I want you to stand up and recognize those people, what I call that special group I play cards with in Florida. Stand up, guys. Okay, thanks a million to each and every one of you. Love you all to death.